I actually use curriculum a lot in my classes. So one of the things we do at the beginning is within the students, we break down each curriculum expectation. We go through the action verb that's associated with each one, and then the content. So the students actually track their progress through the course with a sheet that has all the expectations, and then we put it in context at the beginning. So we talk about all of them, and then as we move through the different things we're building, the different things we're doing, we continually go back to those expectations. So I'm trying to teach them the language of curriculum expectations as we go through. So it's not just what are we doing or why are we doing it, but it's always grounded in, well, it's connected to these expectations. By the end of the course, most of the students can see why the course was made that way, like why the expectations were in that order, how they fit together, and then we have them rearrange it so that they look at different ways it could be put together. So it's not as me being the person saying this is the curriculum we have to have, it's this is the curriculum, how do we break that out? How can we break that down into pieces? Why is it this way? How does it look?
And something you just said, and I think you could probably build on it yourself, is, and tying to integrative thinking, is that you focus on the verbs.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we all have the same verbs or similar verbs in all of our curriculum documents that relate to building better thinking skills.
One of the most interesting things I find is that talking to other teachers about curriculum, right? The same curriculum verbs, and there's about 18 of them, are in every single course from kindergarten to grade 12. And then you have to ask the students in a grade 12 course, how do you analyze something? And they say, I don't know. Right? Well, have you talked about analyzing? Have you talked about how to do this? And as teachers, a lot of teachers aren't thinking specifically about that either. So once we start looking at those skills, you can take all of these tools, the ProPro chart, the ladder of inference, mind maps, all of these different things, and link their function to those verbs, to those skills you develop. And I have a quick story to tell about the difference between explain and describe. So I had a class where I have a grade 9 and 10 mix. I asked for volunteers, a grade 9 boy and a grade 10 girl. And I said to him, how would you describe Rebecca, this girl? And he looks at her with these big eyes and he goes, beautiful, right? She turns red, he turns red, the whole class. I said, okay, interesting, but that's more of a value judgment. So let's look at how you actually describe her. Then we get into height, hair color, all that kind of stuff. I said, okay, now explain Rebecca. And he's just like, I can't. And I said, why not? He says, because I don't know her well enough. And then everybody just went, oh. So when I just asked, what's the difference, they couldn't explain the difference. They couldn't articulate it. But once they see that as an example, they were able to take it apart. And then we do that with all the verbs. And by the time it's done, these kids are able to then look at the verbs and describe them, articulate them, and then choose the tools that best fit those skill verbs.
When it comes to something like explaining, and they need to sort of decide, where am I going to get the material to help me explain whatever it is I want to say, I find using the ladder of inference connects that really well, in that it gets them to think about, if they're starting with their conclusion, the idea of how did I get there? Can I sort of retrace my steps? And sometimes the challenge with explaining is the fact that they don't see, how do I get to that point where I've got, say, a complete explanation or a thorough explanation? And so I find that asking them or getting them to think about where they are in the process of saying whatever it is they need to say, or completing those actions from the curriculum, that's one tool that helps them sort of understand where I'm at right now, what direction can I move in, with the ladder either up or down. And so I find it's a good tool for helping them fulfill those actions, I guess.
I think as the skill or the required skill becomes more complex, we need more tools. The students need more tools, and we need more tools as educators in order to help them reach that understanding. So the difference between explain and describe. We can do describe, but in order to get at explain, we're going to need more information, more tools.
And what explain sounds like in an English class versus a math class versus a science class versus business. It's so great because you can still use that same tool and connect it to the particular content.
And curriculum in the science classroom, we're experts in certain specific fields. So we're experts in English or mathematics or history or whatever. And at the elementary school level, teachers who come and they actually kind of see the I think process, they are kind of masters of all trades in the sense that they are teaching a variety of different subjects to the same students every day. And in that respect, they might be able to actually see the connections to be able to use, I think, strategies in one area, which allows them to get used to the strategies and then expand them into other areas that they teach in. For us as secondary school specialists, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to actually kind of understand how to integrate those strategies into the subject material or the subject matter that we're actually trying to teach, which can be problematic and frustrating.
Yeah, sometimes I don't think we recognize that it's not a discrete set of skills in each subject area. It's actually that big picture, which elementary school teachers sometimes have a leg up on us with that because they see that big picture. We tend to work in our discrete subject areas and we forget that these tools are flexible. We can use them in all disciplines, and the knowledge and the skills that students derive are interdisciplinary.